Africa because the government, they don't have they lack the commitment to apply it. So the implementation has a great problem in my country. So they do have good policies, but they did not implement it well. So it depends on the country's context, as far as I can say.
I think implementation is in general an issue.
Yeah, another case study in my country, in my remote village, the government deploys 60 PC units with 4-year internet connections, 1 by 1 Mbps, which costs about $1,000 in Nigeria. For the last 8 years, nothing has happened to the center, to the telecenter. No operations, nobody went there to operate the computer. But in the same village, there is 3 viewing centers showing Premier League, Spanish La Liga, every Saturday and Sunday. And the teaming youths pay to watch the movie. And the centers are operated by an individuals. Do you get my point? So if the people in the community are really getting it right, they should provide a kind of power supply to the center. The problem with the center is just a power supply. There is no power in the village, so they can't operate the center. But they are maintaining 3 viewing centers, showing top league in the world. And the team youth are going there. So if I may say, it's at an implementation level, because the government have done a very excellent job deploying the machine and internet service, but just the maintenance cost. I tried to engage some community leaders to see how we can operate the center, but it didn't work well. So in my own view, I think it's part of the implementation.
So what you're saying is that there's a great demand for Premier League soccer.
Yes.
Probably when the Manchester United plays, right?
Yes.
Beyond, you have something to say about this sustaining demand?
I think this was my PhD was all about is the demand sustainability for internet, and looking at the difference, for example, between telecenters, which should be a non-profit organization in a way, or an NGO paid thing, and the internet cafes, which is purely business. And it's very similar to what you with these TV centers or football people. What makes a place like this sustainable is that people really want to pay for it. And that has, and then we're back to the content and the benefits from internet access, for example.
So in Uganda, somehow they thought that disco is what the content is what they want.
I'd like to argue with this because I have seen prices of internet access in Africa, which is much higher than even Eastern Europe, and not to talk about Scandinavia. I don't know about US, but why they are so high? That's what I would, because for example, for the same bandwidth in Uganda, you would pay 20 times maybe more than in Norway or in Sweden or whatever.
Well,
why is that?
I think there has been a development there. The last 3-4 years, at least 5 years, maybe they have been digging down fiber in most of East Africa, and that has done something with the prices. So and that's one thing. And 1 hour of internet access in an internet cafe is in Dar es Salaam, for example, is about 1/10 or 20th of what the price is in an internet cafe in London or Oslo. So I'm not sure if it's very expensive, but people are willing to pay. What we found from my research that people could pay, for example, 10% of their monthly income just for internet cafe access. Just if the internet cafe really gave them benefits. That's really so.
I agree. I think that is the key.
But there was an initiative in Brazil, I don't know if you have heard, it was on a TV something where the government was giving computer to people that were unemployed or something like that. And what happened, they thought they were giving the computer for education and internet access also. But what happened, these people opened a kind of telecenter or cafe or whatever, they used the computer in business. But it was somehow good because they attracted more people coming and learning and that kind of stuff. So there are very different models that can be used.
The unintended consequences, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? we did some studies in the e-government sector in Tanzania, and what is striking is, what kind of basic systems that are not there. You can go there and can see what their needs, and you can do that by building Excel sheets, whatever, in some of these places. What I think is needed to get development is some clever guys like you figuring out how to use very basic technology in some creative ways. I think the technology is there, but it's about being, somewhat creative to do that. But what is missing, and for example, what we see in Nepal, which is missing, is the business models. So they do a lot of stuff, but they haven't thought about, how to actually get some income, or actually very often they're also very idealistic, so maybe they are not thinking about income. But you need that business model to get up and running. Look at M-Pesa, these kind of projects. Highly popular because they are needed and because you can have some kind of income from these projects.
Definitely want to add that in my master thesis I was talking and looking at IT multinational companies. Why are they interested in the, let's say, the most poor people in the world? Well, actually they are not poor, they are micro-consumers. But if you take the number of people, 4 billion times the micro-consumption, it's a huge number. Actually, you can cover all the Wall Street deficits we have now. And that's the key essential thing, but that also means that we shouldn't stay on one island, the ICT for youth community. You have to reach out to the business informatics or the business science field, economics field, social sciences. Design field, by the way, is very important as well. There will be a BOP conference based on the pyramid this week in Delft. And all these fields should be incorporated to get, let's say, hybrid value change in which social entrepreneurship can thrive. But that means we have to talk with other people.
I have a comment on that, but Devinder, you wanted to say something?
I have just one suggestion as a researcher. I think if you are in ICT 4D, then you should be familiar with the concept of this Amartya Sen's capability approach. That's very important. And we can at least understand what development is. So this is my suggestion that you should and read this Development as Freedom book by Amartya Sen.
Yeah, right. One quick comment about your this business and so on and so forth. I used to go to this Development Studies Association conference. These are the development studies people from UK. And one time the theme was private public partnership. And at a tea break, I met this person, and he said he worked for Hindustan Livers, and they're doing some stuff. And he just made a presentation. And I said, so how was it? He said, I felt like a lion in Daniel in the lion's den. They're all attacking me. And the whole notion was this, as soon as you talk to the development studies people and you say this business of these people are blood-sucking, and so on and so on. So they don't get to see beyond that. But we as a community, we are ICT for D, and I think we ought to be able to look beyond that. Do you have a quick comment? And then I will go. Yeah.
I think there's one key thing too, and that is we have to talk to people beyond the research community, because the bloodsuckers are in the research community because they are very pure in their way.
Bloodsuckers?
Yes. In the way, well, in a positive way, because you have some
Positive
position. But at the same time, if you look at the real world, things happen which are different. And if you take reality into that equation, and I can speak from practice because after my graduation, as my background is ICT with consultancy, I set up together with other people, it's not a non-profit, it's now social company, but I was involved with setting up. And actually it's an incubation and broker function where companies are brought together with NGOs, social entrepreneurs and academics on the field of, base of the economic pyramid.
Bottom of
business? No, I don't speak of bottom. Base. It's not bottom. It's not low. The base is broader. It's bigger. That's the only issue I have with Prahalad's thing.
Now he's dead, you can pick on him.
No, I'm not picking, but I'm saying we should be fine. But it is possible. There are examples in practice. So the debate should go further. This should go further than where we are.
We move on to the next question, but let me assure you that the ICT community is very much aware of this aspect. In fact, in Gardner conference, one of the, declarations, whatever they want to come up with, what this community should do, one was action research. That we actually need to do that. Some people didn't like that, but there were enough enthusiasts to actually go into this. Great. We'll move on to the next. By the way, when you talk about business model, I fully agree about this. We have to proper business model for this, the one that they show Premier League games. Perfect business model. Don't show in Liverpool games and
come
do
on.
a lot of stuff. All right. During the supervision, a student has the understanding of supervisor's view in a specific research approach. But the examiner might disagree with the approach. Question. How does the student maintain two different opinions in his research? Schizophrenic, essentially.
You please.
How
do you please?
Sorry? And how does the student know about the examiner's opinion before the examination? Yeah, I have an answer to this, but anybody want to address this issue in here?
That's my fresh experience.
Okay, yeah, fresh experience.
But I didn't get that kind of problem because if your research questions and research area is well formulated and the approach is proper to your research questions, then the examiner doesn't kill you actually. They don't go. They don't ask you why interpreting, why not action research. You never. In my case, in my case, they didn't ask that kind of question. Why not other approach? But maybe I was lucky, but I don't think if your approach is coherent with your what you want to do in your research, then there should not be any problem. But maybe supervisor has their own.
Isn't it like the people that are appointing the committee, they know the examiner and also the students, so they can make a fairly good sort of a match that's well, of course it should be a sort of a critical committee, but still you should understand the whole setting and the whole use of methods. It was when I did it, we were discussing this because the examiners had to sort of accept the research question and the use of methods.
The short answer to this, unless you want to add something, is that you have to trust your supervisor. They know, they should know, put it this way, the field and who is what, and then be able to judge how it would be. In most cases, Devinder is right, and when an examiner may or may not agree with your standpoint. I remember in my case, one of the examiners, my minor was cognitive psychology, and it's based on cognitive psychology, and this is somebody, psychologists have been appointed, and then I asked one of the committee members, and he said, oh my God, this guy's a behaviorist. He used to study under Skinner. So I was talking to him, and he said, you know what, this cognitive information process, I don't believe any of this. I only believe in stimulus response. And I'm shaking. And I'm like, and then he went on to say that, understand this. And the first word on my abstract was a cognitive view. He said, I don't believe in this thing, but what I want to look at is how well you have argued from this particular perspective. So most examiners are like that. Now, there are a few who are, well, I won't name anything, but they're like that. So, and your supervisor will know enough to sort of avoid that. But you should avoid this situation.
It's for sure it's the supervisor's work to the program's work to find someone who can do that. But I think maybe that relates back to what we discussed earlier today, because we were discussing how important it is to understand the program you're in, and I think that's part of the answer. I've been in that situation this semester. I had a very good master student who got a very average grade, and I had to go back to committee. I wasn't involved in actually, that was one of the programs, I wasn't involved in picking the committee, the two censors. And I had to go back and ask, and they didn't like, the theories. But that's a bad answer, because I was the one, suggesting these theories. Ended up actually getting a better grade after, it wasn't our program, it wasn't a bit. So I think that too happens. The best answer for the student is to discuss with the supervisors and to learn, read a good thesis from that program, whatever, if it's a master or a PhD level, and be sure that you are conscious on some of these issues. And on the PhD level, I think, I shouldn't talk for all of us, but most of us realize that if you pick a different committee, or if Maung, he was my supervisor, if he yeah, exactly. If he ended up with, he could pick a committee that will never accept my thesis, for sure. That's not very difficult. That's how it is, because you are making some, you do something, there are other things you don't do, and there are some researchers who would like you to go in that direction, all that kind of stuff. So we are not picking a nice committee, but we are picking a committee that do understand the tradition you are in, and that's very important. But that's not for you students, that's for the committee and the supervisors. But discuss with them.
Thanks. I'm getting signals from Siraj that but I'll just very quickly go through some of these questions. Some of them are very easy to answer. This one is for Professor Day, this one for Rahul Day, so we can just omit.
No, that's for me too.
And then this question I don't think can be answered. Honestly, it says, what are all the theoretical frameworks used in ICT4D? Those are quite easy. This one is also fairly easy because, I'll only let Devinder answer this very short. Talking about development theory, is sense-capable approach still relevant?
No.
Okay, good. So the
Until
answer is
last
done.
Friday.
And
It's
then,
relevant.
yes,
It's relevant.
it is relevant.
It is relevant.
Is it?
And it's
Can
getting
this is
popular, and
sensibility
actually
approach.
ICT4D, this community accept that.
And there was a special issue on ICT4D. The other point was sense relevance. When Devinder was, Austin was a co-supervisor, we co-supervised him. And then he started saying, I'm going to take human development approach and I'll define development in terms of Sein. And Austin kept on saying, oh, you have to justify. I said, you don't need to justify. Just say, I use Sein's approach, everybody will accept. Nobody raised any questions. And we had critical examiners, and they said, fine. So it's almost like, you want to argue, go and argue with Sein. That sort of thing. So, yes.
In my first year of PhD, my supervisor engaged me more on sense capability approach work. He said I should go and do a lot of research about sense work. That's my basic research for year one, which I presented on that. So it's very relevant. It's very important.
Absolutely.
Anybody doing ICT4D must have a concept.
And I can suggest some examiners you can, have and be quite pleased with the sense. Nobody argues sense approach. I'll tell you, the thing is, we don't have time to go into this, but what you do is that they talk about certain aspects of it. It's not, what is that called? Operationalizable.
Yes.
What's from Royal Holloway? Was somebody was
Paulo?
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you talk to Dorothy, for example. She spent a whole this thing about that. So those are, but these are questions of how to use it. Nobody has any problem with the basic,
Well, I do, but
All right.
I think there's a big gap in Sein's model, which doesn't take into account any ecological
Yes.
bit to it. The environment is not a variable, and the environment is more and more important in defining what development is, and it's still out of the picture. And that's
One of the
big-
biggest, of course, you could have step further back and say there's no technology in it, for example, in sense.
No, well, but I think that's a different thing. I think that the finite resource that are in this planet, even if you take into account the ratio of progress of technology in improving the efficiency, we are still much off track. And I had actually the chance to speak with Sein. He visited my city, and I asked him this question. I said, you did build up the Human Development Index, which is big progress compared to just where the growth as reference, but what is the environment? COP15 had just collapsed, and we keep meeting. And do you see any personality in the political arena that is able to bring in the environment more? And he looked at me and smiled and said, "You."
Yeah.
and I was like laughing, but then I thought, it's like, stop throwing the things at someone else. Just rub off your own sleeves and start working on that.
Let's talk about this, because nothing is final. It's
but
like you go on and you can do it. And I don't think it's fair to expect Sein to answer all these questions. And sports, and we can all add to that. We talk about collective capability, for example, that was not in Sen's model, it was more individual capability. So every PhD, maybe you can add something, that's something new that we say. And that's where I will leave you. This last question is, what is your opinion on mixed method? And just say yes, no, all this. What is your opinion on mixed method?
Yes.
Yeah, but it makes life difficult.
It's perfectly fine if you can carry it off. You know, one of the most important part is you can do whatever you want, provided it makes sense. So be ready to defend it, and if you can, you do it. It makes life difficult, it makes life interesting as well.
Or even make your own method.
Yeah, no, he's not kidding. He made his method, and we are going to present it, and you're trying to make a method. So I think at some point you will discover that, you know, it does this, but said like I want to use Sein, but well, I'm studying ecology, and where is it? So you sort of, and the bigger giant you attack, the more it's also risky, right? But the more impact that you can make. All right, I think there's a bunch of very interesting questions, and thank you very much all the panelists for some very. I hope you found this useful, and just reflect on it and talk about it. The final answer is there's no final answer, as long as and then you can do whatever you want, provided you can defend your position. Yeah. All right. Good luck. I hope you